strangers all the time. When you're in the bank, at the grocery store, waiting in line at the post office, wherever. And so they don't understand that stranger thing. And lastly, in the off chance, in the rare instances where it is a stranger who might want to do something to a child, they will not present themselves to the child the way a child thinks a stranger looks or sounds. Kids think stranger is scary. Right. You say stranger danger, so they think it's going to be a scary person with a mean face or voice. And in those cases, a stranger will approach a child in a very friendly, outgoing way. They may introduce themselves to the child. They may have an enticing lure or a trick of some kind, a treat. And so what happens? That child's stranger danger radar doesn't even go up when it should.
Right.
So scrap stranger danger, replace it with tricky people. And there's a couple of reasons why. Tricky people covers all your bases. It covers people you know, people you don't know, people you know a little bit. And we're basing the idea of tricky people not on what somebody looks like, but rather what they say or what they want to do with you or your child. So when we start talking to kids about safety rules and people breaking the rules, we incorporate the idea of tricky people, somebody who wants to break your safety rules.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works.
I love that so much. I told you previously that I wrote a post about predator, like the registries, the sex offender registries, and how people are so focused on that, and it just doesn't seem like where we should be focusing. I mean, in the era of Jerry Sandusky, I mean, what more do you need to see that that's not, scanning the playground for somebody you might know is on a registry is not the right approach.
Right. The thing about the Megan's Law registers, I'm very much in favor of Megan's Law because it does notify us when somebody who is not safe may be living in our community. Parents get all wrapped up on that, and they put all their attention on finding out if somebody lives next door to them or in their neighborhood. Now, the registers can only tell you about sex offenders who've been caught, convicted, done their time, and then are released back into the community. So if you have somebody who has never been busted for anything, they're going to fly under the radar. So we get all freaked out because someone lives to the right of us. Meanwhile, we never see him, but we have a next-door neighbor who's so nice. He doesn't have any kids of his own, but he's inviting the kids in the neighborhood over for ice cream. He's got the Wii game. He's got a swing set. This is where you might want to be focusing your attention, not necessarily on that registered sex offender, who you may or may not.
And it was that post came about by a woman who wrote about, I believe it was a family friend who was busted for child abuse. I think they were like the family chiropractor or something, but that she was, and the woman was just, completely caught off guard. She had no idea. And that's the thing. It's like the best people, the best abusers are going to be the best groomers. They're not going to just be able to charm kids. They're going to be able to charm adults too, right?
Exactly. That's what has to happen. A child predator, and I call them all predators because they prey on children, a child predator or a molester has got to start that grooming process and create and establish trusted relationship before they can move into actually violating or molesting a child. They've got to gain your trust as the parent. They've got to gain that child's trust. It takes time. It's very calculated, and we call it the grooming process. And so, as diabolical as it is, I tell parents all the time, the grooming process actually works in your favor because it buys you time to recognize when some tricky person is exhibiting some red flag behaviors, and you can say, and we're going to put the kibosh, we're going to stop that relationship from going any further with our child. So there's a lot of red flags and tricks that go along with grooming, and that's our job as parents to find those out.
Right, that's a good way to put it. So I know that you talk about some of the classic things we've all heard about, like if somebody touches you in an area, a swimsuit area. But I know you put a lot of more emphasis, not just on the actions, but like how the person makes you feel or what they say to you. So tell our readers some of the tips you have for what other things you should discuss with your child beyond just the safe red touch, green touch. That's what they were doing when I was a kid.
Right. And that's good, red touch, green touch. But there's a whole lot more that we can we can teach our kids in a really friendly, non-fearful way that actually works, and that is with the Super 10 safety rules for kids and grown-ups. So think of it in this way. Kids get through their day with rules. Rules in the classroom, rules at home, rules when they're playing a game. So when we put safety in the context of rules for children, it's like giving them the do's and the don'ts. It gives them a framework to operate out of. So we teach kids safety rules. They love to tell you when somebody else is breaking the rules.
Oh, mine does. Oh, he loves it.
Right? It's very empowering. It gives them something to do. So some of the rules tell you what to do. Some of the rules tell you what not to do. And kids really like that because it gives them very clear-cut answers. So what are some of the safety rules? The first one, start telling your kids they're the boss of their body. It's great. Kids love to be the boss. Even little kids understand it. And it simply means you're the boss of this thing. Right. You make the rules about who can touch you, who can't touch you. And if you don't like any kind of touch, even if it's a pat on the back or a squeeze or a tickle, you can say no or stop because you're the boss.
My husband read that one time. He said, I read that you should ask if you could pick them up. They should feel like they have control over even their own parents. Like, can I pick you up? You know, like so that they get like you start early. This you can say no to somebody touching you.
Right, and that's really important. I just imagine if you were sitting, playing, or reading, and somebody came by and just picked you up and moved you somewhere else.
Right,
so it's the same thing, but because kids are adorable and cute and we love them, we think we can just pick them up and feel them and all of that. So being the boss of their body gives them ownership, and it lets them know that they can say no or stop, even to a bigger kid or a grown-up if they want to. I teach kids classes all the time, and with the younger kids, I tell them it's okay for them to keep on saying, stop touching me, stop touching me, because they love to say that. So I say, go ahead, somebody's touching you, just tell them, stop touching me.
Yeah.
So that's my first and foremost rule. One of the next rules that I really like for children is to check first. Before you go anywhere, before you do anything or take something, check first with the grown-up in charge. That's usually mom or dad or who's ever taking care of them at the time. So, for example, if they're at a big family picnic and Uncle Joe says, let's go in my car, let's go for a ride and pick up some more ice cream. Even though it's good old friendly Uncle Joe, you got to stop, you got to ask first. So they race to mom and check first. If they're at the park. Whoop, everything okay?
Yeah, you just froze a little bit, but it's fine.
Oh, okay. If they're at the park and a friendly stranger says, hi, my name is Mr. Joseph, and I have a puppy that's lost. Will you help me? I'll give you candy. I want the kids to check first. So we really got to instill in them. Stop. Got to check first. Hey, Mom, I want to help that guy over there. He's going to give us candy for helping him find his puppy. Got to check first. So check first covers all your bases because it buys you time, again, to assess the situation. They want to go in the next door neighbor's house and visit them for snacks or to look at the new puppy or the new goldfish. Got to check first.
I really liked what you say, too, about the adults don't ask for help from kids. I love that. Right. What a great way to explain it.
Yeah, and that's a really important rule. That was the next one I wanted to talk about. We want to raise nice kids, and kids know that when they're helpful, they get a lot of kudos and pats on the back. But kids need to know when it's okay to help and when it's not okay to help. And you see me do thumbs up and thumbs down all the time because kids understand this.
Yeah.
So as parents, use that signal.
Okay.
The rule is safe grown-ups don't ask kids for help when you're by yourself or you're just with another friend. Common sense will tell you, safe adults ask other adults for help. If I lose my pet in the park, I'm not approaching children saying, help me, walk off with me. I'm a safe adult. I would ask another grown-up. People in cars don't pull over and ask children for directions or what time is it. They would ask another adult.
Well, what about if you're at a party and like their friend's mom says, can you help me with the dishes? How do you explain the difference between that?
It's a great question. You simply say, when you're at your friend's house, or when we're doing something and one of the moms asks you for help, it's okay to help as long as your mom or dad are close by.
Okay.
So you just give them that boundary. And if your child is one of those kids who really, really follows the rules, they may want to check first.
Yeah.
So if you just say, that's okay.
That's fine.
You know,
yeah.
if you before you help, you can ask.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Usually, that safe grown-ups don't ask kids for help rule comes in really handy when you're out in the world more than anything.
Right. Okay. Which are like strange adults in particular don't ask kids for help.
Right. People that you don't know don't ask kids for help.
Right.
So. And I will often say, kids, you know, if your mom or your dad says, I need help, clean up your room, that's okay.
I know that another thing you talked about that set off quite the firestorm in the comments of the Checklist Mommy thing was it's a mom with kids is safe. And there was a lot of discussion about dads. Why can't dads be safe? So can you address that issue?
Yes, absolutely. When a child is lost or scared and they're by themselves, you simply want them to make the least risky choice of who they're going to ask for help. And statistics and all the research shows that a mom with children or a mom with a child is the least likely dangerous person to help out that child.
Right.
So it's not that I'm against dads.
Right.
I know a lot of great dads and all of that. And you can tell your child, a mom with kids or a dad with kids. You can say a dad with kids. For me, statistically, I just go by the least risky person. But you can say a mom with kids, a dad with kids. But you got to make sure they understand it's somebody with children.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these rules, as you're teaching them to your children, you really want to role play, act it out. Or when you're out in the mall or Disneyland or Target, wherever, ask them, who would you ask for help if you ever got lost? And if they're not clear, then help them out and show them, there's a mom with kids. There's a dad with kids.
Okay. So, and my question is, I was reading through a lot of your tips too. You know, Sarah and I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I have started a lot with him talking about, like we talk about, is there anything you could ever tell mommy that would make her stop loving you? No. Is there anything you would get in trouble for ever telling mommy? No. Like we do that. I'd heard once that the most important thing they have to understand is that they can tell you anything ever. So I talk about that. So I just wondered with like preschoolers, 3-year-olds, before they're really kindergartners or anything, like how do you suggest kind of progressing through this information as starting with a young preschooler on up?
Okay. One of the rules, one of the Super 10 rules is the no secrets rule. No secrets from mom or dad, especially if it's a secret about your body. Mm-hmm. When kids are very young, I tell families the best thing you can do is try to implement a no secrets at all rule rather than good secret, bad secret. Right. Puts a lot of pressure on a kid to make a judgment call there. So the simple thing is no secrets from mom or dad. And when you teach that rule, you do it exactly the way you just said, Sarah. You can tell me anything. There is nothing you can't tell me. I won't get mad. If you tell me about an uh-oh feeling or an uh-oh secret, I'm on your side. I got your back. And so when kids actually hear that, they know they can trust you. One of the big problems with sexual abuse of children and why it can go on for a long period of time is because kids are afraid to tell. Right. Either the predator says, shh, this is a secret, or you're going to get in trouble, don't tell anyone. They put that fear into a child. So a child's afraid to tell. And the child really doesn't know it's always okay to tell unless we tell them first.
Right.
And I hear that from parents all the time. My child would tell me. My child knows that what's okay and not okay. And I said, but you really want to make sure that you tell them. So if I'm doing a class with parents and kids, I actually turn to the moms and dads and I say, moms, dads, is there anything that your child can't tell you? Will they ever get in trouble if they tell you about a secret? And I want the kids to look at mom and dad when mom and dad say, nope, you'll never get in trouble. They need to hear that loud and clear.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like so much of like what you teach too is just acknowledging that don't tell yourself that this could never happen to you. You know,
Yeah.
like, acknowledge that, you know, this is something that happened, and no one thinks like, oh yeah, I bet my kid will be abused. You know, like they catch you off guard. They catch you confident and comfortable. And if you can acknowledge that I need to be prepared, because this could happen to anybody, then that seems like half the battle.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions that this only happens in certain types of families or in certain neighborhoods or certain ethnicities or different religions, and that's simply not true. It can be across the board, anybody. The problem is that, and I think I said this earlier, 90% happens by somebody the kids know. Unfortunately, that's like a kick in the stomach, and we want to think that, well, everybody we know is really nice and really safe, so we don't have to worry about this, but the boogeyman doesn't look like the boogeyman. Predators look like everybody else. In fact, they're very charming. They're very gracious and outgoing and flattering. And that's one of the biggest red flags. When you've got somebody really laying it on thick and they're a little too charming and they're working you and your kid, step back and go, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Right.
I talk about the uh-oh feeling a lot. Just to get back to the rules, just one more really important rule for the kids is to listen to that uh-oh feeling. It's called your instinct, but you don't say instinct to a child. You say the uh-oh feeling, because they understand it. So we tell kids all the time, listen to that uh-oh feeling. If you get an uh-oh feeling in the pit of your stomach or your little head says, uh-oh, this doesn't sound right. Uh-oh, this is breaking a rule. Uh-oh, I don't want to do this. And tell your mom or dad about that uh-oh feeling. Listen to it. Right. And that's for them and that's for us as well, too.
Seriously, that's just something, I mean, I'm sure all of us moms want to keep that intact in your child. Yeah. You know, we'd have easier times as adults, too, if we kept in touch with our uh-oh feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, I'm a huge Oprah fan. They always talk about how often the women were like, it didn't sound right. I left. I didn't like the way it looked. I turned around or whatever, you know. It happens all the time.
It's one of the strongest protectors we have is our instinct. And what happens sometimes is we try and socialize that instinct out of our kids or even out of ourselves. And there's some plain red flags right in front of us and we go, no, it can't be. Yeah. If you get an instinct, that's your clearest sign. And when you start minimizing that or trying to talk yourself out of it, ask yourself why, because you wouldn't work that hard to talk yourself out of an instinct if everything was okay. Right.
And Sarah asked a really good question that she wanted to be brought up, is that the issue of tattletaling. Like, I know a lot of my friends struggle with that. I've had tons of conversations where, you know, you don't want them telling all the time. And I was asking because my child at this time wasn't even in school yet. And I'm like, I have no idea how to explain to him when it's okay to tell and when it's not. You know, like, it's almost like I'd rather him be a tattletale. I want him to understand that he can tell me anything. So I don't can you address how to, like, help them tease out the difference?
It's hard because little kids especially, they do want to tell everything. Somebody's touching me, somebody's pinching me, somebody pulled my hair, somebody took my toy. And so we do want kids to tell us this stuff, because if we keep telling them, don't tell, eventually they'll stop telling, because then they're going to have to start making judgment calls. So I call it being a good boss reporter. It's okay to report if something seems yucky or scary or hurts or feels like, this looks like trouble. So, you know, you can start talking to kids about being a good boss reporter. And you can say things, you know, like, if it's something like somebody's touching you, that's being a good boss reporter. If it's something like little Johnny's picking his nose and you just want to get him in trouble, then you can tell me about that later on. It's not really...
I think I did hear somebody one time say that you can tell them it's the difference between someone that's going to be in trouble and someone that's going to be in danger. Like, if someone's going to get hurt and that's an issue, then yes, immediately go tell a teacher. Right. If you just want them to get in trouble, however... But again, that's hard because it's like, well, if there's a predator, you'd want them, if they're thinking they'll be in trouble for this, well, then tell me, I want them to be in trouble.
Exactly. And so I usually don't tell a very young child that, because that's confusing between, danger and getting in trouble. So I just want them telling us about everything.
Yeah. So
when they've got something going on that they really feel that they got to get out, I think it's important, because the more we tell them, don't tell, they'll listen to that and they'll stop telling, and then we're in trouble. So, be prepared for, once you teach that rule, be prepared for them to tell you everything for a while. And then they sort of process it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is there anything else that, in particular for young children, you think you want to be careful to not confuse them?
Well, I don't want them to be so polite that they think that they have to do everything that a grown-up tells them if they get an uh-oh feeling.
Okay.
So with little children, I will teach them that if somebody gives them an uh-oh feeling, they don't have to be too polite and do what everybody else says. It's okay to say stop or no, and to get away from that person and go find your safe grown-up right away. So I think it's important that we teach kids you don't have to be too polite to everybody if you get an uh-oh feeling. We want to raise nice kids, and we don't want to raise rude kids. But again, we don't want kids who are conditioned to be so polite that they think everybody else gets to say what they should be doing, and they don't have any say at all. So I think that one is really important too.
Definitely.
And, it takes time to teach these rules to kids. These are the things kids should know, the do's and the don'ts, the Super 10 rules, but it takes time. You can't just go over them one time and expect your kids to get it. You pick out a couple of rules and you work on them 2 minutes here and there in the car, on the way to a birthday party or school, when you're setting the table, just a couple of minutes.
Right.
And I tell parents all the time, just blame it on me. Just say, oh, I heard this lady, Miss Pattie, the safety lady, talk about safety rules. And then just pull one or two out and go over them.
So it's an ongoing discussion, basically.
It is. It's an ongoing discussion. It's really kind of how you set up your family system. The rules apply when the kids are 4 years old and when they're, my daughter's age now, 14. Most of the rules are still the same. The only thing that changes is the way you deliver the message. At 3 and 4 and 5, you're a little more warm and fuzzy and cutesy, and at 14, you can be a little more straightforward with some information. But
right. I like that. Okay, I like that a lot.
Use them until they leave for home.
Now, tell me, before we wrap up, tell me about the seminars and stuff that you offer, because I definitely want our readers to know about. And I, as someone in Kentucky, I wanted to know how far you travel, how far you go.
I go anywhere.
Oh, good. Okay.
Anywhere. Because I'm based in Southern California, most of my work is here in schools and in organizations here. But I do travel. I have a signature program called An Ounce of Prevention. It's about a 2-hour seminar for adults only, caretakers, parents, teachers, and it really focuses on how we can minimize the risk to children by recognizing the red flag grooming tricks, which I really want to make sure parents understand. We talk a little bit about Megan's Law. We talk about how to establish healthy boundaries for those people that we know who interact with our kids, so we won't be tricked by a Coach Sandusky or a friendly next door neighbor or Auntie Susan's new boyfriend. So An Ounce of Prevention is the parent piece. It's the most popular, and you can email me and I can tell you all about how to get it in your town.
Okay.
I also do children's classes for grades K through 8, and they're curriculum and lessons that I've created specifically for each individual age group, and I do them per grade level. So that's something else. But one of the things I'll be honest, it can get pricey if you need to fly me to Kentucky because you got to pay for travel costs. So one of the things that I do is I license out An Ounce of Prevention to schools and civic organizations. And what I do is create a PowerPoint and a script and give that to the presenter. I do an hour training over the phone so that they'll know how to present it. And then they can do it for themselves. And the best part of that is if you tell me what date you're presenting, I'll block out the time, and you can Skype me with questions.
Oh, that's great.
So have me there, because, there's going to be questions that come up that can't be answered. So that's something else that you can do if you don't live nearby or you don't feel like putting me on an airplane.
That's great.
I think it's really important. I think the piece here that gets forgotten sometimes is that parents always want me to come and talk to their kids and do a kid workshop, and that's great, and that is important. But parents need to really recognize that we've got a responsibility to minimize those risks, those red flags in grooming trips. Pay attention to those. Somebody who's more interested in spending time with your kids than you are. Somebody offering to always help out, save the day, relieve you of your parental duties. Lots of expensive gifts, lots of flattery. Somebody who is really working hard to spend alone time with your child that excludes you. Ask yourself why. Just pull back, slow down, and say why. If it's grandma, that's one thing. If it's your next door neighbor, think for a second.
Well, and I really like that. I think that's so smart because it's, it is tempting as a parent to be like, great, I have this expert. She's going to tell my child everything and it will be done.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's a really good point. Like, it's not over. Even if you came and sat with my child for 2 hours, that's not one-on-one. Like, that's just not enough.
No, that's simply the introduction. And I tell parents all the time, if your child takes a workshop, that's the introduction to the language and the rules. Now it's your job to follow up and really reinforce those rules. Just like anything else, if you hear it one time, you're going to forget. It doesn't resonate. So if you go onto my website, you can see, parents can see the red flags, the tricks and the lures, and some of the prevention strategies that you can use. So I encourage parents to go there and check that stuff out for themselves. I also wrote a children's book.
I have it right here.
Oh, good. I'm going to ask you if you received your copy yet. Yay. And that's another great way to just start the topic. I wrote it because parents kept saying to me, how do I start talking about this? What do I do? And so I said, well, read the book. I wrote the book, and parents read it with kids. It opens the conversation, and then, boom, you're there.
And my friend who said she really tries hard to talk to her kids about it, and she came over yesterday, and she was like, she flipped through it and immediately said, where do I get this? Because this is exactly what I want to cover, and it's like perfect. So, and we'll be giving away a copy, too. We're very excited. So we'll see how at the bottom of this post how to enter. So that's great, too, because that's the way to keep the conversation going.
Right.
Absolutely. So what do you always tell people at the end of your seminars? What's the one thing you want them to always take away?
I want them, and I'm glad you asked that, I want parents to walk away from this not scared. Most people in the world do not want to hurt children. So we don't want to go out there and give the stink eye to everybody and think they're all predators. Use common sense. So the first thing is, not everybody is a molester. Pull back. Take a look at who's interacting with your child. Trust your uh-oh feeling or your instinct. Be an involved parent and talk to your kid about certain concepts. And you really can lower the risk, minimize the risk that something happens to them. So I guess the most important thing would be stay involved, pay attention, trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Always. That's always the best advice. Well, I thought it was fantastic. That's why I literally read that post and thought, I am emailing this woman right now because this is brilliant. It's such great material, and thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing all this with our readers. We really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait to tell people about Salt and Nectar. I love the name of that blog.
Yeah, everybody loves the name, and people always say, who's the salt and who's the nectar? And I tell them it depends on the day.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Pattie. Thank you so much.